Good morning and welcome to Moments with Melinda. Thank you for being with us today. And today I am so overwhelmed to have Charity Clark, our Attorney General, as my guest today. Thank you so much for being here. S- So we
Uh-oh.
got we kind of got stuck. So let me
Melinda, I'm getting a notice that says my internet connection is.
Good morning and welcome to Moments with Melinda. I am your host, Melinda Moulton, and today I have the deep and amazing honor to have Charity Clark, Vermont Attorney General, with us today. Hi, Charity. How are you doing?
Hey, Melinda, I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much. Under the circumstances we're living in, I think we're doing pretty well here in Vermont. Well, to
Yeah.
my viewers, there's not a whole lot I need to tell you because we're going to talk about it in this interview. But Attorney General Charity Clark has been our Attorney General since January of 2023. Correct?
That's right.
That is correct. So let's start at the beginning. You are a Vermonter, born and raised here. Tell us a little bit about your family and your childhood.
Okay. Well, I grew up in southern Vermont. My family owned a grocery store, so I spent a lot of time in the grocery store. It was in Londonderry called Clark's Market. And I always point that out because it really informed a lot of how I see the world. I started out when I was 10, I was like sorting bottle returns and stocking shelves. And then when you're 16, you get to run the register because you have to be 16 to have someone with alcohol come through your line. So when I was 16, that was the big time. I got to be a cashier and I learned so much from interfacing with the public and just like observing the people. It was the only like actual supermarket in the town where it was. And so it really informed the sense that we all have in relation to our communities. And so I always like to start my foundation by describing that experience. I was very fortunate. I ended up going to the University of Vermont, and it was, Burlington, as to quote my sister, Burlington is the place where people from the country like me come to be in the city, and people from the city come to be in the country. And I've always thought that's like such an apt description of Burlington. So I had a great experience there. And while I was there, I really discovered my love of state government. And I did that ironically by an internship with Senator Leahy, a United States senator, and was like, you know what is more interesting to me? State government instead of federal government. So I really, I kind of started focusing on that. I did an internship in the governor's office and then worked there for 4.5 years after I graduated before I went to law school. I went to Boston College Law School and made my way back to Vermont. After that, I worked at a law firm in Vermont, did a stint in New York City. And I always like to point out that no one loves Vermont more than anyone in New York City who's working all the time as a lawyer. So my love of Vermont grew even more and made my way back. And I started working at the AG's office in 2014. So I've been there a long time.
So we're going to dig into all of that, but I want to step back a little bit. You have a twin sister.
I do.
Now, is she an identical sister?
She's a fraternal twin sister and she's 10 minutes older than I am. So I'm the second child. But we're very close.
Oh,
She lives not that far from me, and we still are very close. One of the problems that we had when we were in our 20s, my apartment was in downtown Burlington. So before we went out, people would stop at my apartment. And so she would come and she'd be wearing the same outfit as me. And then she'd be like, you have to change. Like, I don't have any clothes in your apartment. You have to change. We're not going out, like literally as twins wearing the same outfit. Still happens. We still like show up. We just a couple years ago, our family goes to the beach and we were literally wearing the same bikini. So even though we're not identical twins, sometimes we do identical twin type stuff.
well, I love that. It talks a lot about who you are to have a twin. So you are
Yeah.
also a descendant of Thomas Chittenden, the first governor of Vermont, and I
Yes.
believe that this gives you license to follow in his footsteps at some time in your future. Yes?
Thanks, Melinda. I appreciate the vote of confidence.
Well, no,
I'm
that's an
sure
incredible lineage.
I know, and I'm sure that he could have never imagined that his great 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 granddaughter would ever be attorney general, for starters. So it is kind of fun. Yeah, I'm a 10th generation Vermonter. That's on my mom's side, and then on my dad's side, unbelievably, I'm also a 10th generation Vermonter. So we are just. You know what? I like to joke there's maple syrup running through my veins. I'm also impervious to winter. I like think it's great. Just wear wool, you're good. So yeah, that's my legacy.
Oh, well, it's in your bones. It's in your DNA.
Yes.
So when did you first decide you wanted to study law?
I couldn't have imagined as a child myself going to law school. I knew zero real lady lawyers. The only lady lawyer I knew was Mrs. Huxtable on The Cosby Show. And she was, of course, like gorgeous, glamorous, in charge. And then Hillary Clinton came along, remember, during the Clinton's first race. And I was like, this lady's cool. But I still like couldn't even imagine myself like going to law school. So it really is a testament to the internships I did and the environment at the university, and especially working in the governor's office. What I observed is that there were a lot of lawyers who didn't actually practice law, but they were working in government, and their law degree helped them be successful, do a good job, and get the kind of respect that they had, especially women. I felt like the women I saw, I mean, this was the 90s, right? So their equality hadn't reached where it is. I still think we struggle with that, but even back then, it really hadn't reached remotely where we are. And I could observe my colleagues who were lawyers and women were given more respect and deference. And I just decided this is for me. I was pretty nervous because it's such a big commitment. And I was so relieved when I started being like, I like this, I enjoy it. And then even more relieved after the first year, this summer, I spent working at Downs Racklin Martin in Burlington. And I was like, I love this. Yes, I made the right decision. I'm going to enjoy being a lawyer.
And, and,
So it was a journey to get there, but it ultimately was the right thing.
and look where it brought you. So now you worked as a policy analyst for
Yes,
Governor Howard Dean, who, by the way, is one of my most favorite humans.
he's the best.
And he's been interviewed on my show. He's a great
Oh.
interviewee. So please talk to us about this time in his administration. And also, were you involved in his run for president?
I learned so much from Howard Dean and from his administration. I mean, so much. I learned about, diplomacy, the legislature, how state government functions. Also, just something that I feel like is pretty unique to Vermont is Montpelier, our state capital, is so small. Everyone knows each other. And it really feels like this community in and of itself where we all have to get along. So even if you disagree with someone, you're going to find something in common with them. Whether it be, your kids play the same sport or you love the same type of bagels, whatever it is, you have something in common and you can make jokes about that. And even though you are on different parties or whatever. And I feel like I learned so much. A lot of Howard's, staff were former legislators that he knew from when he was in the legislature. So I just like learned a ton from them. It was such a wonderful foundation. One thing I did encounter, however, when I went to law school is in Vermont, sometimes if there's like something isn't quite right, rather than suing over it, you can just go to the legislature and say, well, this doesn't make sense. We should change this law. And the legislature will be like, okay, and it'll get done that year. That doesn't normally happen. So I got to law school and I was like, well, that stinks. But you know what you could just do is go to the legislature and be like, I have an idea here. And my professors would be like, no, that's not, you have to go to court to get that. I'm like, oh, okay, all right. It took me like a semester to figure that out. But it's so nice to be back in Vermont where that is an option. When something isn't quite right, you can go to the legislature and point it out to them and say, hey, maybe we should change this.
So what brought you back to Vermont after you worked in New York with the firm Orrick, Harrington, and Sutcliffe? What brought you
I
back?
mean, I used to have a recurring dream, true story, that I was in Montpelier and I was either like filing stuff in the governor's office, or I was walking down State Street on a balmy summer night, like walking past the state house and being like, "Oh, I'm so lucky to work for the government here, and this is so great." So clearly, the experience working at a big fancy law firm in New York City was not really. I wasn't well suited to that in terms of a long term career choice that would bring me a lot of joy. The real answer to your question, however, is that I got pregnant and I was like, this baby is going to be born in Vermont. And 7 months pregnant, packed up a rental car with 2 suitcases and my cross country skis, 7 months pregnant. It started snowing. It was very auspicious. I was like, yep, doing the right thing. And I moved home to Vermont and I had my baby in Burlington. So she's an 11th generation Vermonter. But more importantly, I wanted to raise her in a community that reflected my values, where I knew I would be happy and she would be supported. And I have zero regrets. In fact, we took a trip on a recent spring vacation to New York City, and she did not like it at all.
Well, I took my
It smells
granddaughter
bad.
Because I'm from that area and I took my
Yeah,
granddaughter to her for her first visit and we got out of the train and she looked at me and she said, "It really stinks down here,
it
dude."
smells. It smells. You
And
forget. It
I
smells like
said,
urine and garbage.
I know, but
Yeah,
I said, that's my lifeblood. I mean, I get to New York and I'm like, I just
I
come.
know.
But anyway, so for 4 years you worked with the indomitable spirit, TJ Donovan, then the Attorney General
Yes.
for Vermont. I believe that is when you and I first met.
Yes.
You resigned in May of 2022, and with TJ stepping down as AG, you stepped up and you ran for Attorney General. You won the election with 65% of the vote. I mean, that's right up there with Bernie, making you the first woman ever elected Attorney General for Vermont. Talk to me about that moment in your life.
A wild summer. I had a primary first. And, in Vermont, so far, the Republican Party has not had really strong candidates. The two candidates I've run against have not actually had law degrees or been lawyers, for example. So for me, the race was really the primary. And my primary opponent went on to great things. He's now a judge, which is great. But it was a pretty crazy summer. I mean, I hadn't been a politician, so I didn't have the experience of being a politician. A lot of statewide politicians were first like in the legislature. They've started out somewhere. Even though I'd worked with a lot of politicians, I wasn't myself a politician. So I had to get myself out of the staffer mode and be the candidate mode. And you know what helped me the most? The one thing that helped me the most, that I as a child did drama in elementary school and high school. And how I looking back, it's like, who would have thought how helpful that would be? But as you pointed out, I had no time. I found out I was running less than 3 weeks before the 500 signatures were due to the Secretary of State. I mean, I had like a 3 month campaign. It was 4 months. It was so quick. So I didn't have time to really train and become the candidate. I just had to, in my head, be like, you are playing a role. The role is candidate for Attorney General. And so that got me comfortable with it. And I was able to give speeches and kind of embody the role. But I was also so lucky to have mentors that I had watched. TJ Donovan was an accomplished politician. Howard Dean, obviously a prodigy. And I worked for Senator Leahy. I worked for him. I was an intern for the summer, but I still use things that I learned working as an intern for Senator Leahy. I still use them with constituent work and stuff like that. So I was very fortunate to have the training, if you will, low key training that I had from working for these politicians. I also was very fortunate to have a community and training through Emerge Vermont, which is a campaign school for women who are Democrats. And it was so marvelous. I learned so much and I made like wonderful, wonderful friends who all supported me in different ways, whether it be they marched in a parade, they donated, they wrote a letter to the editor, they walked me around their town, introduced me to people. I made such great friends. And it was in the pandemic, it was still the pandemic in the winter of 2021, 2022. So we were all still feeling isolated and just like to meet all these incredible women it was so great.
And,
But
and you had Madeline Kuhn and you had Bill
yes,
Sorrell as a mentor.
that's right. I mean,
And Bill is so effusive, and I mean
I
he's
know
really
he's
dramatic.
wonderful.
You,
He's the one who hired me.
okay.
Madeline Kunin, she was governor when I was a kid. So she was like my hero. I was so proud that Vermont had a lady governor and looked up to her so much. I read her memoir of being governor, Living a Political Life, which is probably somewhere on the shelf behind me. And she's autographed it when I was in college. I had her autograph it. I read it when I interned for Senator Leahy. And I think reading about her experiences is part of what inspired me to get an internship in the governor's office because I was like, this is what I want to do. This is so cool. The people she talks about, some of whom I later worked with when I worked in the governor's office myself because they were still around. It was really, really inspiring. But speaking of Madeline Kunin, I was extremely motivated to run, which is I could have just have been a happy lawyer, right? And I had to put myself out there, quit my job, not get an income, and go out around the state raising money and getting people to, vote for me. And who am I? What's my name? What do I stand for? And I did all that in part because I was motivated by the fact that we'd never had a woman attorney general. And it just felt a little embarrassing that here I was as a child looking up to the governor. And I was, at the time that I launched my campaign, I was 46 years old and we still hadn't had a woman attorney general. So I was very motivated by that. And it really kind of I think it was like the push that I needed to take the step to do what I did. It was just like I know I can get elected and I would make a good attorney general. I have to do this.
65% of the vote. So, you and Bernie are in good company. So let's move on to some of your signature accomplishments. You sued
Okay.
Meta.
Yes.
Talk to us about your strong desire to protect Vermonters' privacy.
Well, I I sued Meta and TikTok, I would say. TikTok, they're they're really bad. And I've been a data privacy advocate. So those things are connected because, of course, it is our data that we purchase Meta and TikTok with. We don't pay them money, we give them our data, and then they sell information and advertising space to advertisers. So we, the users, you and I, think of social media as like a social media platform that we like talk to our friends through, but actually it's an advertising platform. That's the purpose, the business purpose of TikTok, of Instagram, et cetera. So we did sue, and that was a huge coalition of states across the country. And this related to basically the like psychological tricks that are put in place with these social media apps to keep especially children on the app. And we all experience this, but so it's things like infinite scroll, the fact that, when infinite scroll is like when you see a post, you can see like a little preview of the next post and it's irresistible. You're like, what's that? Oh, I know that person, or that looks like a fun party because you just see the beginning. Ethereal content that like disappears after 24 hours. So you always want to be on the app.
Oopsie.
And suddenly time passes and you're thinking, oh my gosh, I've been on this app for so long. Well, that's because psychologists, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Now I
Okay,
can.
good.
Yep.
I got the your internet, the dreaded your internet is unstable. So long story short, they put all these tricks in there to keep our eyeballs glued because when our eyeballs are glued to the screen, they sell more ads. So that's why we sued them, and the case proceeds. We're in the battle right
Good
now.
for you. Sometimes I'll be in the car and I'll be talking to Rick about something I want to do or something, and I swear to God, I'll go then on my social media and there'll
I
be an
know.
ad for what I was talking about.
I know.
I don't know how they pull this stuff, but I hear you there. I mean,
It's spooky.
and I've only done a couple of TikToks of my granddaughters, and they were quite cute, by the way. So let's move on to abortion rights. It is
Yeah.
a top signature issue for you. You
Yes.
sued the FDA to make abortions more accessible nationwide. I'm assuming that you won. And talk to us about the other things that you're fighting for our reproductive health.
Well, this is an interesting, for those who are interested in campaigns, the Dobbs decision, which stripped us of our right to abortion nationally, the Roe v. Wade, kind of getting overturned, that occurred pretty early on in my campaign. So I launched my campaign on May 16th. I think that was like the last week in June. So I was doing campaign stops in the middle of just like reckoning with this horrific deprivation of our right. And I decided, I was like, we can respond to this. There are things that we can do to protect Vermonters. And so I immediately like put together a press conference to announce a plan. And it felt really good to be able to, move quickly and have the press conference. And a lot of those things were put in place with the safe harbor. I mean, I called it safe harbor. It was something else, called something else, but the legislature put a lot of those in place. So it was really nice to be kind of aligned with their thinking. And I was really proud to do that. And then when I became attorney general, the FDA, we were in a battle with the FDA, and specifically there was two cases going on. So someone who did not share our rights, our view on these rights, had sued in Texas, and we had sued in Washington. And so there was dueling court orders about whether the abortion drug mifepristone, which is, I think, like more than half of the abortions that take place in this country, use that drug. And so the dueling court orders were jeopardizing because one had nationwide impact, the one that we didn't like. So there, thank God we had gotten involved so that there would be dueling orders and the Supreme Court could resolve that. And we are where we are today. But it has been
Where are
demoralizing.
you? Where are you today? Where are you today on this?
On the mifepristone
Yeah.
issue, I don't have an update on that.
Okay,
I mean,
thank
I things have changed because that was under Biden, so things have changed. The president obviously has a different view on the rights of women, and all of us and our bodily autonomy. So this is, unfortunately, that was kind of a really big deal during the Biden administration, but now every day it's something different. So
Right.
sort of add it to the pile, when it comes to deprivation of our rights and the dehumanization of people in this country, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
So you are a supporter of the criminal record sealing law, and this bill is
Yes.
now on its way to becoming law. Why was this important to you?
It did become law, and I'm so excited. So my office had run what we called expungement clinics because it used to be that you could expunge lower level crimes from your criminal record, and now it's just sealing, which means, for the general public, you can. I doing those expungement clinics, I was the chief of staff at the time when I first started doing them. It really, really inspired me to want to be able to help more people because here's the thing, there's no statistical correlation between someone who has a criminal record that's years ago committing a crime and someone who, I guess that's the end of the sentence. There's no correlation. Like that person is just as likely to commit a crime as someone who's never had a criminal record. So once time has passed and your record has been clean for a number of years, you actually, there's no, it's just a scarlet letter. And I feel like the scarlet letter belongs, in the 1500s, 1600s, whenever that was. So I'm really pleased that the legislature finally, after a few tries, resolved the question, and this is now law. We will be holding sealing clinics to help folks, but just if I may, just helping, I mean, truly, I've probably helped hundreds of people, but you help these individuals, and it's like it's such a practical impact because now they can maybe get a job that they couldn't get. Or I helped a lady who wanted to do the co-housing. She was older and she found out she had like a crazy old shoplifting charge from when she was a teenager, and now she was in her 70s and she was looking to, do the program where someone would move into her home who needed a home, and she couldn't do it. And it's like, the other thing we always hear about is people wanting to go on field trips with their kids or their grandkids. And it's you seem to be frozen. Oh, there,
Oh,
there you are.
here I am.
Sorry.
Yeah, you were frozen too, so I'm going to ask CCTV just to edit this.
I'm
Just
so
cut out
sorry
those
that
frozen. No, no, no. So I wanted to ask you. Well, I've been a biggest supporter of criminal, restorative justice. And my son-in-law is the president of Church at Prison and goes in and works with a lot of people. So I understand why this is really important, and I thank you for your work on this.
oh,
Um,
my pleasure.
the criminal record sealing law. It's really, really important.
Yeah.
Um, so let's move into PCBs. They're
Okay.
contaminating Vermont's waterways and schools,
Yes.
and it's a big issue. So you
Yep.
sued Monsanto for contributing to that contamination. As part of your legacy as Attorney General of Vermont, you want your environmental work to be front and center. Talk to us a little bit about that,
You
Charity.
know, I have observed in my work and life in Vermont, but also as a leader of this state, I think that our love of our natural environment completely crosses all political parties, all kind of, I grew up here, I'm from out of state, all of it. We all have this just uniting love of our environment. And it kind of makes the path clear to me. I mean, I myself consider myself to be an environmentalist. I really believe in protecting our environment. And I also am an avid like outdoors person, I guess. Um, but I also am like, what an easy topic for me because I know everyone cares about this and loves this. So I just there's so much you can do as Attorney General to impact the environment. Well, this is impacts our environment, fisheries and waterways, but also our schools. So PCBs was a chemical made by Monsanto, and it has it's not bad for your health. In 20, I want to say 2020, the legislature put a statewide school testing program in place, and they allocated millions of dollars to help identify schools that had PCBs, high levels of PCBs. They kind of, set a level. And then it just became obvious that, we had a lane to bring a lawsuit. And so we did bring a lawsuit on behalf of the schools, on behalf of our natural resources here. That is proceeding right now. So, all these cases that it's so exciting when we bring the case, but then it goes on for years, and this one will too. But we're really hoping to, regain the money so that we can reimburse the state for the testing that they had paid for, which was millions of dollars, and also the remediation that needs to take place in certain schools that have tested positive for PCBs.
So, yeah, I mean, there's a province in Canada that's outlawed Roundup. Roundup should not be on the shelves of any hardware store in Vermont. And there was a movie that was made called Chemical Reaction. It came out
Mm,
10 years ago. And
mm,
and I recommend that everybody go online and watch this movie because it
yeah.
talks about the effects of Roundup on human health. So now as someone who's been scammed as an
Oh,
old lady, this has become quite common in older
yeah.
folks. Share with us what you were doing to fight against Vermonters having their money stolen in scams.
Well, I will say that that elder Vermonters are targeted because they have more money than younger Vermonters, but younger Vermonters are the ones who are actually more likely to get scammed. So don't feel bad if you are targeted by a scam, or you get scammed. Like, it's
I,
not
well,
because of your age.
well, I've had my husband stand there and say, "You're being scammed," and it'd be somebody with a a native voice, like a Pakistani voice or something. I'd be like, and I'd quiet the phone and say, "You're just being racist. Just stop it. This person's helping me," and my husband's begging me to hang up the phone, and but no, he's so nice. He's helping me. But anyway, yeah,
Hard.
older
It's
people
really hard.
are very
So
vulnerable, and we
yes.
and these people can be so charming and
Well, yeah, they're
lovely.
playing with your emotions. That
Exactly.
is if you want to be a successful scammer, you have to play with people's emotions. So you're either creating a sort of rapport or affection, like you just described. You're spiking emotional response due to fear, anxiety, like, oh, they're shutting off my power. The sheriff is coming to
Loneliness,
arrest me.
loneliness. Old people are
Yeah,
lonely. Somebody
lonely.
wants to
The
talk to them.
romance scams really scare me. So I should say for your viewers that we have in our office the Consumer Assistance Program. You can reach them at 1-800-649-2424 if you are worried that someone you love is being scammed, if you want to get information to protect yourself, if you have a nonprofit or a community organization, you want someone to come and do a workshop on avoiding scams. We're there to serve. And we collect scam reports, which are really helpful, because if we get like even five scam reports about a specific scam, we will put out a scam alert. People have signed up, and you can sign up to
I
get a
have.
text or email or voicemail from me saying there's a scam. The utility disconnection notice scam is on the rise. Be on the lookout, or we'll alert the press so that they can tell folks about it, because prevention is the name of the game. These scammers do not live in Vermont. They are not located in the United States. They're overseas. It's very difficult to shut them down. So awareness and education is really the name of the game.
It's really true. Thank you so much for that again. And what's that number again?
1-800-649-2424.
All right. So to my viewers, if you've been scammed or you have somebody you know who's been scammed or are vulnerable or whatever, please make that phone call. So let's talk about the most recent lawsuit you filed against the U.S. Department of Education over the public service loan forgiveness restrictions.
Yes, I shake my head. Is that a lot of the cases we have brought? Melinda, can you hear me? I'm
I
getting
can hear
your
you. Yep, I can.
okay. So what we have found is that there is a theme. Like, the most common case that we have brought involves the Trump administration trying to do something that's Congress's job or someone else's job, but he loves doing Congress's job. Congress has the power of the purse. Congress uses our taxpayer dollars and creates programs and makes investments. It is the president's job as the executive branch to execute the programs. He doesn't have carte blanche ability to transform the programs, spend the money in a different way, et cetera. That's not his power under the Constitution. It's the legislature's power. So this is and a classic is the Trump administration likes to encumber a program or a grant with some condition that the legislature did not include when they created the program. And this is that example. So we have a public interest loan forgiveness program. I can't remember how it works, but it's like if you work in public for the public for 10 years or something, you can have your loans forgiven. I know I have many friends in my office who had their loans forgiven. And, law school is 3 years. It's not cheap. It's like $100,000 forgiven for the service that they provide to the state. So it's really a wonderful program that can kind of inspire people who are worried, like, I have all this debt. I can't afford to go into public interest. I got to work for like a big firm. So it's a wonderful program. And he wants to encumber it. And he encumbered it with something crazy, like something like if you're working at a nonprofit, say, that is doing things that are like substantially illegal, according to him, I guess, you're not eligible for this program anymore. And it's like, no, that is not what the legislature said.
All right, thank you for that. Well, we're going to move right now into this horrific, I mean, and truly not an elephant, but is an elephant, the elephant in the room. And you know what I mean. Share with my viewers some of the lawsuits. That's one that you've brought against the Trump administration. I know that you have been standing up and fighting for our rights against
Yeah.
what the Trump administration is trying to do to humanity and to our government and our democracy. So talk to us about maybe some of the more current ones that you're involved in with the
Sure.
administration.
So, I think we've sued the Trump administration now 34 times, which is tremendous. During the first Trump administration, we had to sue a lot as well, but we sued over 4 years. We only sued 62 times. So here we've surpassed the halfway mark, but we are very far away from being halfway through this administration. So it has taken up a ton of time. As the Attorney General, it is my job to represent the sovereign state of Vermont in court. That includes bringing lawsuits when there is a violation of the Constitution of the United States or federal law. When Vermont signed up to be a member of the United States of America, we had a system, right? And we said, this is a good system, we want in. And you can't restructure the system. That's not how it works. We are a sovereign state, we have powers of our own, and we need to all adhere to the system. So that is a lot of what I'm doing. I love getting the money back. When the Trump administration wants to take money out of our pockets and I get it back, it feels great. And we've now, clawed back successfully like tens of millions of dollars. We'll see how things go. I'm sure it's going to, by the time we're over, because we have a couple of really big ticket items. So I'm sure it's going to be over $100 million, which is crazy to think that if I hadn't gotten involved, we might not be getting that money to Vermont. So of course that's important. But the other thing that's important is the rule of law. It is my job to stand up for the rule of law. So even if I got no money, if I were saying this is the system that needs to stay intact, that is a victory to me. So I take that really seriously. I was asked if what the AGs were doing was a soft secession from the union. And I was like, literally the opposite. We are the patriots standing up for the system, standing up for the United States of America. So I've been spending a lot of my time doing that, unfortunately. And I would rather be doing so many other things. This is like defense and not offense, but it is my pleasure and certainly my duty to do this work right
Well,
now.
this is critical because that's all we have left. So, speaking of our judicial, we have a Supreme Court that is primarily in lockstep, no pun intended, with Trump. Explain two things to my viewers. How is a company a person, Citizens United, and why did they give Trump immunity? I mean, come
I
on.
know. I know. It's disappointing. They are the Supreme Court of the United States, right? So here's the thing. They have the last word when it comes to interpretation of a statute. However, our system is like this, in my opinion. So they do something the legislature doesn't like, or the people, which we make up the government, it's a government by the people, of the people, for the people. We don't like it. Well, then the law needs to change or the Constitution needs to change. That happens sometimes too. So we have to keep that in mind. It is a cycle. When it comes to issues related to the social issues that might come before the Supreme Court, I'm not feeling very optimistic that they're going to rule the way most of us in Vermont would want them to rule. This includes issues relating to LGBTQ rights, related to, frankly, the environment, and other social issues. I think when it comes to the rule of law, I think there's a greater appetite for them to uphold the rule of law. Judges are judges, and it doesn't matter if they're politically conservative, they still love America and want to do the right thing. I don't know if I'm looking at the world through sunny rose-colored glasses, but I truly believe that. And we get signals from them all the time that they do
Well,
not
like
tolerate.
like
Yeah.
the tariff bill. But
Yes.
if they don't stand up and if they don't hurry up,
Right.
you're going to lose their jobs. I mean, if this man really gets to take over all three branches of government and maybe change the Constitution to the Trump doctrine, which he's been talking about too, they're going to lose their jobs. So they better start stepping up. So explain to my viewers, you talked about the judicial system and how Trump has avoided, he's been, of being accountable to all of these crimes. So let's just jump in real quickly to AI. There's a tremendous
Mhm.
fear around the world about machines taking over humanity. People are really freaking out about this. I'm kind of like not one of them, but I have read Dean Koontz's novels, and those are really scary. Do you feel that this is a real pressing issue for humans? And if so, what can we do about it?
Yes, I really, really, really do. I feel like I'm more informed about AI than the average person, although I'm no, by no means an expert and I'm always learning. So if your viewers want to send me an article or a book, I would welcome it. So this is going to be society transforming. So there's definitely different ways to look at AI in different kind of pockets. One of them is overall, I do not believe that AI is going to benefit the working people of Vermont. I think it's going to replace some of the jobs that they do. It's going to once again be on the trend of making the wealthy wealthier rather than helping all of us. So right away, that's a concern. But I'd love to, and there are many concerns: deep fake, non-consensual imagery, using nudification apps to like take a picture of someone and make it look like they're naked. I mean, these are disturbing. But can I just, since we don't have a lot of time and I could talk
We have
about this for a
time.
whole
No,
episode,
we have
I
time.
want to tuck into one thing. You already asked me about scams. Imagine for a moment that you have an AI chatbot who you hit a button and 1,000 AI chatbots go out into the world to try to find victims of a romance scam. So you don't have a person having to cleverly engage with another person trying to scam them. You literally have AI bots who are trained with all of the favorite phrases and things that will get people to be scammed. That is going to happen. I mean, it is going to happen. And it just like things like that just keep me up at night because how are we going to protect people when it's not just like AI is going to make things easier, right? Well, it makes crime easier too. So I really pull out my hair when I think about the fact that Congress and even our own legislature has not taken meaningful steps to protect people from AI. And instead, it's so like novel and fun, but actually, there's so many pitfalls, and we all need to be keeping abreast of the technology and the concerns. And, really for the rest of our lifetimes, this is going to be a really big issue.
Dear heavens. Well, I'm thank you for being there to bring this up. So what are your words of wisdom to my viewers and all Vermonters who are deeply and rightly so frightened about the takeover of our government by a regime that supports white nationalists, the destruction of rule of law and our democracy, the creation of their own police force made up of criminals who were pardoned, and a political party dead set to punish and incarcerate their political enemies? All of this is anti our Constitution. What are your words of wisdom to my viewers and so many people around the world who are really very fearful about this time in our history?
It is demoralizing to be an American and see what's happening. We do have to remember that America wanted Donald Trump to be their president. They voted for him and they knew exactly what they were getting, right? So at some point we can be dismayed, but we can also accept this is what America wanted and deserved. Here in Vermont, largely we are safe. We are safe because our laws protect LGBTQ people, protect abortion. We believe in the rule of law, et cetera, et cetera. We know the legislature, the judges, the governor, the AG, the Secretary of State. I mean, you and I know all these people and trust them and like them. And we have to remember, I know we're privileged because we live in the best state in the country. Like I know that. But at some point, if you're feeling like you're what we can do. We have to do our role, participate in democracy, write a letter to the editor, go to a protest, read a banned book, volunteer for a campaign that might be happening out of state. We have to remember that the congressional midterms, when everybody in Congress is up for election next year, are happening. We have a wonderful Congresswoman, Becca Balint, but not everybody has a wonderful Congresswoman like her. Other states are going to be flipping from Republican to Democrat, and we need to take over the House. That is what, frankly, that is the most important thing. Is the Democrats have to restore balance to the federal system, because right now it's way out of balance. The Republicans have so much power, and look at what they're doing with it. They have literally failed to lead. The leaders have failed to lead. We have a government shutdown, like it's embarrassingly dysfunctional. So I would just say, don't hide, on your couch in your what are those robes that are blankets, in your slanket. Don't put your slanket on and watch Netflix. Like, you've got to be participating in democracy and caring about our country. That's the most important thing. And I
Oh,
do believe, I say this and I believe it, we are experiencing a test that ultimately we will pass.
and based on what we're seeing at our rallies, Vermont does step up. I mean, our groups are so powerful. So now I know
Yes.
you have a beautiful daughter. What are your words of wisdom that you'd like to tell our children who are growing up, our children, in a world that's filled with unknowns, especially around issues like climate change? It's their future, and so
Yeah.
far we have failed them. What do we say to them to give them hope?
It's understandable to be afraid and be concerned for our world, but look around. You have a lot of champions, a lot of people who care and are working with their resources, their smarts, their labor to fix the problems and address the problems. And even children can be a part of the solution too. My daughter wrote a letter to the president. And I couldn't believe, when she was 10, I couldn't believe how articulate it was, laying out, you're breaking the law. Here's what's up. But my favorite was, she had two PSs. Little kids love, like, the PS, the PPS. So PS was, my grandma was at the protest that drove Vice President Vance out of the state. And then she drew a sign, a placard, and the placard said, "Go ski in Russia, traitor." And then the last PPS was PPS, "Stop ruining my childhood."
Oh my,
I know. So the kids are all right. And we're here to
there.
support them and inspire them.
And we had a great day on Tuesday. So this goes to show us
Yeah,
that
we did.
times they are a changing.
Yes, they
Well,
are.
Attorney General Charity Clark, this has been a fabulous interview. You are a remarkable and brilliant person and my friend and my most
Yes.
favorite Attorney General ever. I'm so
Oh,
delighted
thank
you
you.
took the time to talk to me and my viewers. Thank you so much for being on my show. It meant the world to me. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melinda, for having me and for having your show.
Thank you. And to my viewers, I will see you shortly. Have a beautiful day. Goodbye.